149-0. Just let that number sink in for a second. One team scored 149 goals in a single professional match. We're not talking 14 or 19, literally 149. It sounds completely physically impossible, right? But here's the crazy thing. That mind-boggling scoreline, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's really just the beginning of the statistical anomalies we're going to unpack today. So, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're putting on our tactical hats and looking at 10 numbers that have completely shattered our understanding of modern football. As massive fans of the professional game, you and I both know the sport has evolved, right? It's shifted from that raw, physical, gut-feeling style of play to this highly disciplined, data-driven chess match. But sometimes, the numbers that pop out of these complex systems are so insane, they literally force us to rewrite the rulebook entirely. All right, let's dive right in. We'll start by exploring the evolution of attack. Then we'll move into structural defensive dominance. After that, we'll look at the new demographics reshaping the pitch, before wrapping it all up with chaos beyond the data. Part 1. The evolution of attack, from gut feeling to data-driven precision. Let's look at how this shift has completely rewired the way attackers actually operate in the modern game. You know, for the last decade, modern football has been absolutely obsessed with expected goals, or XG. It's the metric that tells us the statistical probability of a shot actually going in. And for years, the dominant philosophy born from XG was super simple. Stop shooting from outside the box, the odds are terrible, just pass it closer. Because of this single data point, we saw a massive, decade-long decline in players even attempting to take long-distance shots. But that brings us to a fascinating paradox. Right now, the sheer volume of shots from distance in the Premier League is at its lowest point in 20 years. But get this, the conversion rate has hit a record high of 5.4%. That's the highest since records began back in 2003. Aston Villa alone scored 10 goals from outside the box this season, chasing a record set by Chelsea way back in 2006. So what does this all mean? The data told players to stop shooting blindly, and that resulted in highly optimized, data-driven shot selection. They're shooting way less, sure, but when they do pull the trigger, the structural setups and tactical precision mean they're scoring more than ever. And this whole obsession with tactical efficiency hasn't just changed where players shoot from. It's completely structurally rendered certain roles obsolete. Think about the traditional winger. Their old-school job was just to stay wide, hit the byline, and cross the ball. Today, that player is basically extinct. They've been replaced by the inverted winger. Just look at Arsenal's Bukayo Saka. He recently hit 60 goals and 50 assists in the Premier League at just 24 years old. The only player to reach that combined milestone faster was Wayne Rooney. But here's the catch. Rooney was a generational, traditional striker. He was built from day one to score goals. Saka is doing all of this from out wide. This totally proves that modern wingers aren't just wide midfielders anymore. They are hybrid goal-scoring machines, completely changing the geometric structure of modern attacks. Moving on to Part 2, structural defensive dominance, systems over superheroes. Because if the attack has become this hyper-efficient data machine, the defense has evolved into something arguably even more impressive. We've really moved away from relying on superhero goalkeepers to building these impenetrable systems. 6. That is the number of times this season that Arsenal prevented their Premier League opponents from recording a single shot on target. Not one shot for the keeper to save. And they did that 6 separate times. So why does this matter? Well, a clean sheet can sometimes just mean your keeper had the absolute game of their life. But 0 shots on target? That is a structural masterpiece. Elite attackers, guys who are paid tens of millions of pounds specifically to find half a yard of space, literally could not find an inch. It perfectly highlights the flawless, suffocating nature of modern defensive shapes. And the discipline required to maintain that shape is just staggering. Listen to this. Arsenal went 121 consecutive matches without conceding 3 or more goals in a single game. That is an English football record. We're talking about roughly 3 full Premier League seasons against relegation scrappers, title rivals, dealing with red cards, injuries, and all the usual cup chaos, without ever suffering a total defensive collapse. It proves their system was almost mathematically impossible to break down, right up until Manchester United finally squeaked past them with a 3-2 win. Okay, Part 3, the new demographics, widening the boundaries of the beautiful game. Because these highly optimized protective systems, they've actually created a really fascinating side effect. They've allowed players and managers at the absolute extreme ends of the demographic spectrum to actively compete at the highest levels. First up, let's look at it on a national scale.
You have Curaçao, a small Caribbean island with a population of just 158,000, facing off against Germany, an absolute footballing superpower with 84 million people. And this brilliantly illustrates the democratizing power of modern football data. Curaçao qualified for their first ever World Cup, and for 21 whole minutes after Levano Comenzia scored, they held Germany to a 1-1 draw. Now sure, they eventually lost 7-1, but the fact that a tiny island built a football pipeline capable of scoring against four-time world champions, it proves that smart data and structural planning can uplift even the smallest nations.
Then there's the generational gap in the modern game, which is just staggering. Arsenal's Max Dalman started a Premier League match at 16 years and 144 days old. A manager trusted a literal high schooler over grown professionals simply because the data and training pipelines proved he was ready. Meanwhile, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have Fabio playing top-level Copa Libertadores football at over 45 years old, protected by modern sports science and structural team defending. And we're seeing this exact same thing prevailing on the touchlines, too. At the World Cup, Carlos Queiroz became the oldest manager to win a match at 73 years old. Actually, he, Hugo Bruce, and Miroslav Kubek all broke age records within days of each other. Meanwhile, Julian Nagelsmann was managing at 38. That is a 40-year age gap between managers at the exact same tournament. It shows federations are increasingly trusting decades of deep tactical wisdom over that recent trend of just hiring the young, hungry coach. Which brings us to part 4, chaos beyond the data, when the math breaks down. We've talked a whole lot about structure, systems, and data, but at the end of the day, football is played by humans, and humans are chaotic. So what happens when the math completely breaks down? 56. That is the number of penalty kicks taken in a single shootout between Dimona and Shimshon Tel Aviv in Israel's 3rd division. It's the longest shootout in football history, finishing 23-22. Honestly, no amount of XG or data analysis can prepare a team for the extreme mental and emotional pressure of 56 consecutive high-stakes penalties in a lower division night match. It is just pure, unadulterated chaos. And that brings us right back to where we started today. How on earth does a professional team concede 149 goals in one single match? We're talking about that infamous 2002 fixture in Madagascar between AS Adama and SO Limirne. Well, here's the twist that completely shatters the statistics. Every single one was an own goal in protest. The SO Limirne players were absolutely furious over a refereeing decision from a previous match that cost them the league title. So, to protest, they deliberately scored on their own net over and over again 149 times. It proves a massive point for us football fans. Statistics and numbers can flawlessly track what happened on the pitch, but they can't always tell you why it happened. We've seen how data has evolved attackers into these incredible hybrid weapons, and how defensive systems have become impenetrable walls. We've seen demographics stretched to their absolute limits. But, as that 149-0 scoreline shows, the human element always has the final say. So, I leave you with this. If data truly dictates the modern game, what completely unexplainable stat will human emotion create next? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this changes the way you look at the numbers next match day.